Welcome to Diaries of a Healing Latina. This is a safe space where we talk about the parts of healing that no one really prepares us for. In today's episode, we're going to focus on something a little more different. I dropped out of college. I don't know about you, but I dropped out of college 1 year before getting my bachelor's. Yes, crazy, insane. I literally have 1 year left and I could get my bachelor's. But I dropped out. And what I'm going to talk about is how that affected my entire family, affected my future. In a way, I feel that you get misjudged by dropping out of college. A lot of people usually tend to label you as uneducated, and that's where they're wrong. Just because you dropped out of college or just because you dropped out of university, it does not mean that you're not educated. It just means that maybe you just potentially chose the wrong career for your future. And that's what I truly feel that happened to me. Because no matter how hard I studied for every single one of my classes, I struggled understanding, comprehending the information that was given to me. And let's not even talk about the exams, the test. I was horrible. I realized that I suffer from anxiety. And when it comes to tests, I do terrible. All of my anxiety, everything that I studied for hours is basically gone once I sit down in that test room. I don't know if it's the concept of a test, of you being graded based out of this one thing and basically changing your entire life just because of this one test. For example, a midterm or a final basically dictates whether you're going to graduate or pass that class. That for me is anxiety. And no matter how hard I studied, because let me tell you one thing about me, baby, I am a hardworking person. If I set my mind to something, I'm going to go do it. I'm going to study it. I'm going to focus on it. But I just cannot pass a test for a day in my life. And I know a lot of people are going to say, that's just a mental issue, Jamie. That has nothing to do with you. You're just hyper focused on this exam and you need to let it go and just relax. Well, then give me a pill so I could relax. Because I literally look like the shivering chihuahua anytime I walk into a test room, even though I've walked into that room a billion times. So once you give me that little pill, then we could talk about it. But as of right now, I'm terrible when it comes to tests. Terrible. I don't know if it's just a me thing. I don't know if it's just maybe the fact that I just don't understand the information, or I just don't really truly care about the information that I studied. I don't know what it is, but it just doesn't work for me. One of the things that I've always spoken about in this podcast is how hard your family pushes you to go to university and graduate with a career. Most of the time, especially if you grow up in a Hispanic household, a lot of your family members will choose a career path for you. And when I say choose a career path for you, they're not going to be like, this is what you're going to study, point blank period. Like there's no other option. No, that's not what I mean. What I mean is they basically tell you about that career ever since you're a child. And ever since you're a child, you've been listening to this career. This is the career that you're supposed to study. This is the career that you should look forward into. Like you should look more like, and then you start like building that excitement towards that career, but you don't really understand or comprehend what that career entitles to, or the type of study that goes into it, or the type of work that it goes into it until you're not in the field. And one of the things that I will always say, you don't really know what your career is until you don't work in that field. Before you start a career, go into an internship. So you can already like dip your fingers and see if you really actually truly like that career path that you're taking. Because it might be that you might not like it. And that's the issue, you know? Ever since I was young, I've always been highly influenced to study finance and to study accounting. Why? Because I love money. I love money. I love making money. And I love spending money. But do I love counting it? No. And I know that my dad offered that career path for me and presented it to me ever since I was little, because I had this really big obsession with always wanting to make money, that he felt that finance was my calling. And ever since I was little, he will always tell me, like, you should study finance, you should study accounting. That should be a career path that you should look into. I think that's a career path for you because you love money so much. And ever since I was little, since that's all I've been told, I was like, you know what? That's what I'm going to study. Once I graduated high school and I went into college, that's what I focused on. Business and finance, accounting, all of that. But once I started studying in college, the accounting field, the finance field, I started realizing like, this might not be for me. Like, I do enjoy doing math. That's something that always came really easy to me. But when it comes to everything that goes into the accounting field, I haven't been so great at it. I don't have the attention span that accounting requires. And I'm going to be very honest. Like, I could literally audit for hours, but in between those few hours, my ADHD kicks in and then I just like go somewhere else. You know what I'm saying? Like, even mentally. I graduated with my AA and then I went to a university to get my bachelor's. And as I was getting my bachelor's, a year in, I decided to drop out because I decided to look for an office job. And my office job required me to work a lot of hours. And I couldn't really juggle a full-time job and studying at the same time full-time. It was actually really difficult because the job that I had at that moment, I was working almost 12 hours a day, sometimes more than that. I would go in 6:30 in the morning, I would leave 8 p.m. at night. Not only that, my job was nearly an hour away from my house. So mind you, I'm driving an hour there and an hour back. By the time I got home, it was like 9 p.m. So the reason I was able to get my AA was because I was working retail. And that made it very easy for me. Because when you work retail, you don't get that many hours. And they do work around your schedule for school. This job was more of an administrative job. So I had to be there 9 to 5, but earlier at times or later because they had to complete the cells and whatnot. And they were basically building me to be able to go into an accounting position. And that's how everything started. And let me just say one thing. Working full-time and studying full-time is really hard. So the people that do it, I truly give you a round of applause because that's honestly hard. Especially if you have like really high intense job that requires you to be there all the time and you're able to juggle that with your studies, 10 out of 10. I applaud you. I personally couldn't do it. That's why I dropped out. I didn't drop out because I didn't want to finish school. I dropped out because it was just too much to handle. When I decided to drop out, my parents were pretty upset with me, obviously, and my family, they were pretty upset with me. But it was like, who's going to pay my bills? Like at that time, the money that I was making at my job, I wasn't going to make it anywhere else. And it was very difficult for me to get an office job. I basically had to beg people to like give me an interview. So when I got this one interview and they gave me the job, it was like, thank God, finally. One of the biggest things that I thought was me working all of these jobs, I'm going to build up my resume and I'm going to get to the position that I want to get to. I'm going to be that controller. I'm going to be that CFO. And if you know anything after you're actually in the field, you learn that they do look at your certifications. They do look at where you went to school and all of that. So don't ever think that if you want to make it in a certain field, in a certain career, definitely graduate, get your certification because a lot of jobs do look at that. Don't be fooled when people tell you that you don't need a certification to get a certain job because they do look at that. When I dropped out, my dad told me, you should not have dropped out. You should stay in school. You should finish it because the older you get, the harder it gets. And a couple years later, I did try to go back to school and I couldn't do it. My focus was not in the study anymore. It was fully focused on my career. And I said this on my last episode. One of the biggest things that I regret was not really exploring different types of career and going with the career path that my father chose for me. And it's not that he chose it like of despite or like wrong or something bad. No, he chose it because he felt that that could be a career path that was right for me because when I was a child, I was really good at math. And all of the tests, all of the exams that I would pass were math. Reading, science, all of that I would fail in. I'm not even gonna lie. So going into all of this, and then going back to school, and then going into all of the jobs that I've gone through, now that I'm 31 and looking back, the career path that I chose was not the career path for me. I feel internally that I'm more of a creative person. I'm more of a speaker type of person. I love to speak, but if it's in front of a camera, I love to create content. I love graphic design. I love all of those things. I love photography. I've been trying to love finance the way that I love all of these things, but I haven't been able to. And it sucks in a way because I've dedicated, almost 12 years of my life to finance, to accounting. My first accounting job, I literally had to beg the CEO to give me the position. I'm not even joking. I've never begged anyone for a position. I've never really begged anyone like that. But that CEO, I begged him. I was like, just give me that opportunity. Just give me that one chance. No, I can do it. And I did it. And throughout all of my 20s, I felt that I could grow into that controller, into that CFO, because I had the experience, but I didn't have the certification. And I got into certain jobs where I was, in a way, they discouraged me a lot. They discouraged me because they started basically ranking me because I didn't have a certification, because I didn't graduate with my bachelor's. But the truth is, I have 1 year left of my bachelor's. I understand my job. I understand my position. I comprehend a profit and loss. I comprehend a balance sheet. But because I don't have that certificate, because I don't have that graduation, I don't have that bachelor's degree under my education, a lot of people see you as she's not that well educated. She could do the job of data entry, but she can't do the job of everything else. Even though personally, I feel like a job like accounting or finance, you don't truly learn it in school, you learn it while you work it. That's how you build your career, obviously. All of my 20s, I felt that I didn't need to go back to school and get my certification or get my bachelor's, because I had already been building my resume. And my resume is pretty good. My resume is not that bad. But the one thing that I couldn't grasp into all of it was, how do I fall in love with this field? How do I fall in love with my job? How do I fall in love every single day with what I do? And I couldn't find it. And I've tried many times to go back to school, to graduate, to make my parents proud, to make my family proud. Because every time I see them, all I hear is, so when are you going back to school? And, one of the things that I truly dislike about our countries, we go back to our country, especially if you decided to drop out of school, drop out of university, you get judged by that. You're seen as less. You're seen as incompetent. You're seen as ignorant. And I'll never forget this. One time I said how I wanted to marry a man that's educated, that has his things right, giving a description of my future man. And I was told, well, how are you going to want a man like that when you dropped out of college, when you dropped out of university? You won't be able to uphold a conversation with that person because you don't have the education that they have. And that, in my mind, was mind-blowing. Is when you go back to our country and you look at all of the women that graduated university or college, you actually realize that a lot of them do not pursue their career. They actually pursue to be a mother, to be a housewife. So me hearing that and seeing their lifestyle in my mind was mind-blowing, because it was but you have a degree and you decided to be a stay-at-home mom. I don't have a degree and I've accomplished everything that I've set myself to. Listen, one of my dreams ever since I was 20 was to be an accounting manager. I achieved that already, by the way. I was an accounting manager twice. The reason I no longer put that much effort into wanting to go up the ladder is because that's not what I want for the remainder of my life, for the remainder of my future. What I want for the remainder of my future is something completely different. And that's completely fine. But to me, the craziest thing is when you go back to your country and the way that some of your family members view you as, especially the ones that graduated university, is that you're really not educated because you did not graduate with a bachelor's or because you did not graduate university. And the truth is that that's really not true. Does the certification or you graduating college really make you a person that's educated? Heck no. Does the certification actually make you intelligent? No. Does the certification actually build you as a person? No. Does the certification actually dictate what your career is going to be? Absolutely not. How many people have graduated with science bachelors, but they're like a real estate agent? They graduate with something and they end up being something completely different from what their certification is. Does that make them less than? The answer is no. And that's one thing that I've always hated about our society, that we're basically classified on what career path we choose. And the people that actually graduate, they work a 9 to 5, they live paycheck to paycheck, they're struggling, they have a bunch of credit card debt, a bunch of bills, and it's like, to me, it's like, you're still going to sit there and tell me because I don't have a freaking certification that you're more than me? I dropped out because I wanted to change my career, because I wanted to be a manager, because I wanted to be in the accounting field, because I wanted to set foot in the field that I at the moment had chosen. But while I was studying and I realized I couldn't grasp the information, I really asked myself, like, is this really the career path for me? But I overlooked that and I kept going, and I was like, you know what? Let me drop out of college. Let me just work really freaking hard and become who I want to become, which is an accounting manager. That was my mentality. And the wrong side of that mentality is that you overwork yourself. You work day and night. You work these crazy hours and you dedicate your whole entire life and your whole entire health to this one job. And the truth is this really what I want to do for the rest of my life? And you overwork yourself so much physically and mentally that later on in life you look back and you're like, why did I do that? And the thing with all of that, now looking back at it, it was not that finance or accounting was my career path. It was more that my path was to just have my own thing. You get me? And that's basically what I'm trying to chase after now. But dropping out of college and university, I just hate the fact how you're labeled in every aspect of your life, not only in your career path, but also in your family. Like, you make so many people upset because you dropped out of college, but at the same time, who are you to judge? And usually the people judging you that you dropped out of college live the craziest life. It's like, I don't wish to have your life. No offense, but you know, the people that usually have the most to say about you dropping out of college, there's absolutely nothing that I would envy about wanting your life. And I know it sounds fucked up in a way. I don't mean it in a messed up way, but it's like, what I want for my life, it's not that. You get me? It's something complete. It's something that seems unattainable. What I want for my life is something that seems unattainable. And even though it seems unattainable, I know I can do it. Because I proved myself the past 10 years that I've literally built every company that I've worked with. I've started with all of them basically, and I've seen them grow. And I realized all of that time, all of that dedication that I've put into other people's companies, how come I have not been putting it on my own? If we're going to be realistic, that's my path. That's my dream, to have my own thing. You know, my own legacy. I feel like one of the biggest misconceptions about dropping out of college is that you're not smart, that you're incompetent, that you're not educated. And that's not true. A lot of people drop out of college for different reasons. Mine was that I wanted to focus on my career, that I wanted to focus on my job. That's what I did for the past 10 years. I accomplished everything that I set myself to accomplish. And just because I dropped out of college, it doesn't mean that I'm incompetent. It doesn't mean that I'm not educated. I educate myself in other ways that other people don't. and it's completely fine. I don't regret one bit dropping out of college because honestly, I feel like if I would have kept on, I feel like I would have had a crazy amount of debt and me working a career that I didn't even want to work in the first place. I'm going to be completely honest. Like, if there's something that I wish that were taught in high school is about different career paths. Like, I don't remember what show it was. There was a show and I was obsessed with that show. It was a bunch of high school kids, and within their high school, they got to work in different fields. They got like a taste of different types of jobs. And that's what I wish some of the schools or some of the high schools actually offered in today's date, because that would open so many people's mind into what career path that they want to choose instead of dropping out. If I would have learned about marketing back then, I'm pretty sure I would have chosen that career path. If I would have known the different types of jobs that are offered in the fashion field, I would have gone to fashion school and I would have graduated 1000%, because that's one thing that I love with my entire being. Ever since I was a child, I used to draw out like sketches of fashion, like dresses and outfits and things that I just pictured in my mind. Like I said in my last episode, as a child what career path is for you, but you're molded by your parents, by your family into a career path that they think is right for you. But the truth of the matter is that what they think that's right for you is not right for you. Your parents, your family are always going to see black and white. What is the black and white? The main sectors: lawyer, doctor, finance, engineer. That's the black and white, right? Everything else is under it. All of that one sector that no one really ever talks to you about is hidden. It's never spoken about because no one's ever truly educated on all the other fields and how much revenue each and one of those fields make. That's the issue. Ever since I was a child, I was always spoken about finance and all of that because my family saw the revenue that it was generated in that field. But no one ever realized how much I loved everything else and decided to research how much revenue a stylist makes, or how much revenue a graphic designer makes, or how much revenue a marketing agency makes. No one ever took the time because no one's ever educated on those type of fields. Everyone's always educated on the black and white, and that's what you're supposed to study because that's what your parents see, your family see. And that's the mistake in a lot of Hispanic households, It sucks. It truly does. But like I said before, I don't regret dropping out of college. I feel like, I don't know. In a way, I do feel like college and university is a scam because you go into that freaking blinded. Nobody ever really talks to you about it. No one really shows you what each career entitles to. And you're being presented all of these other things by your families, by your parents, that you don't really get to see all of the different types of fields that exist within this world. And I think that's one of the biggest mistakes. I feel like the dropout rate will be less if people were more educated on different types of fields, on different types of careers, instead of just being presented the same old careers that everyone's always been presented ever since 1980. Because let's be real, who this day, like, no offense. I wanted to talk about that, about dropping out of college, the way that it affected my family. I don't even know if I went into so many sectors, and honestly, I don't have a structure. I just speak out of my mind and whatever comes to mind. But I wanted to speak on dropping out of college because it was a conversation I was having with my mom, and the way that I'm seen, or my perspective to my family, is that I'm not educated, that I cannot uphold a conversation. But the reality is that they don't know me. And the reason they don't know me is because 90% of the time I stay quiet or I pretend like I'm stupid. I comprehend what they're saying. I just choose not to conversate. There's a difference. Is that wrong? Yes. It is wrong, but I'm not going to waste my time or my saliva trying to prove my point or trying to prove myself to people that still live with a mindset that was generated back in our country, reason why they live in the past tense. And sincerely, I don't really care to. Like, I'm not here to prove myself to absolutely no one. And that's what I hate, you know, that I feel like in a way that's you being discriminated, that's you being put aside just because you didn't graduate high school or just because you didn't graduate university. People don't really take the time to get to know you, to get to know your mentality, to get to know your voice. They just see the outer appearance, like, oh, that person does not have a certificate. Oh, that person did not graduate university. They're probably dumb. They're probably incompetent. They will not comprehend anything that's going on in this field. And that's where people are completely wrong, because a certification is not what determines a person's IQ. And that's just the truth. Just saying. And one thing about me, baby, I'm book smart and street smart. So do not play with me, because I'm up. Anyways, I hope I covered a little bit about it, because that's just my experience overall. Like, that I went through, the kickback that I got from my parents, from my family members, hearing my entire 20s for me to go back to school, to go study. Later on, now that I'm 30, they're like, oh, maybe you should have studied fashion. And I'm like, well, that's what I freaking said when I was 18, that I wanted to study. But all of you said no, that you were not going to help me out if I went into fashion school. But I could have been a stylist. I could have done other things, but no. And you know what? It's no one's fault. It's not my family's fault. It's my fault. But it's also a timing thing, you know? And I feel like with time, you actually realize what your career path is. And in a way, I feel like this is my career path. I love doing this, and I love speaking to people. I love giving advice. I love talking about my life, about my story. And when people resonate, that's what truly touches my heart, because it takes a lot to be this open, and it takes a lot to tell your stories. It takes a lot to be this vulnerable. And have people resonate with your story truly means the world to me, because honestly, that's just something that fulfills me. And yeah, if this story resonated with you, I'd love for you to subscribe so we could heal together. Thank you so much for watching, and see you on the next episode. Bye.